Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. With that magical tone we all know, the recording in progress tone, we'll go ahead and begin. I'll turn it over to Effie Fletcher, the spiritual program coordinator at Seichen Ling, and Venerable Carol Tarati, the director, to get us started.
Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for being here, Professor Apple. We're very excited to have you, and thank you everyone for being here on time. Back to you, Stephen.
Thanks, everyone. I'm Carol, Director of Seichen Ling, and I just wanted to say welcome you here. Thank you for attending, and just say how pleased and honored we are to have Professor James Apple back with us in the Seichen Ling Zoom room. And I'll turn it back over to Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Seichen Ling for making this happen. And Professor Apple, thank you so much for spending time with us on your weekend, especially during what I presume to be finals, getting closer to the end of a semester where you have lots of other things to do. So we really appreciate that. As Venerable Carol and Effie noted, we're so glad to have Professor James Apple with us here again. Professor Apple joined us a few years ago to present some of the groundbreaking work in his book, Atīśa Dīpaṃkaraśrījñāna, Illuminator of the Awakened Mind. Here we are now moving into some additional work that James Apple has done. This is on the system of the 21 Tārās. For those of you who may not know, Professor Apple is a professor of Buddhist studies at the University of Calgary. A lot of his research focuses on history of sutras, utilizing manuscripts, and in many cases that have never been analyzed, and in some cases are very recently discovered. So it's kind of a critical analysis of Mahayana sutras and commentaries within both the Indian and the Tibetan tradition. He has a number of published works, as I mentioned before, The Illuminator of the Awakened Mind, critical translations of other texts in Jewels of the Middle Way, and he has a number of potentially forthcoming books coming out as well, and constantly is publishing papers that are in the vein of this critical analysis. So some of which, if you Google and you look around, you'll be able to find these some really fascinating papers. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Professor Apple to lead us through this wonderful presentation of Atīśa's system of the 21 Tārās. So with that, I'll turn it over to Professor Apple.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you, everyone. Good morning. I would like to thank everyone for attending this morning. I hope to provide some new and relevant information about the history and doctrine of the worship of Tārā in Indian and Tibetan forms of Buddhism, seen through the works of Atīśa Dīpaṃkaraśrījñāna. So Atīśa, with regards to Atīśa, no Indian who visited Tibet in the past 1,000 years had a greater impact on Buddhism than Atīśa. He is renowned for his devotion to the goddess Tārā, who appeared in his dreams and visions and bestowed predictions upon him throughout his life. So his charismatic devotion to the goddess was the impetus for the faithful worship of Tārā in Tibetan Buddhist culture since the mid-11th century. His lineage is the most distinguished of the 5 teaching traditions of Tārā in Tibet. The entire ritual edifice of worshiping Tārā in Tibet is built upon Atīśa's major works of the goddess. So this morning I will be highlighting Atīśa's sadhana on the praise of the 21 Tārās. Atīśa's 21 Tārās is iconographically one of the most popular in Tibetan painting. Yet textual evidence for Atīśa's systematic ritual evocation of these forms of Tārā has been limited. My recent study, translation, and Tibetan edition of this work furnishes for the first time Atīśa's 21 Tārās Sādhana, which is the primary subject of today's presentation. Now, I want to preface by saying that Tārā can do remarkable things to help faithful followers. However, a practitioner must first receive an empowerment of Tārā from a qualified spiritual teacher or lama or guru. and then engage in the appropriate sadhana or means of accomplishment in a retreat for several months or even years. Atīśa himself explicitly mentions in his commentary to the Lamp for the Path to Awakening, the Bodhimarga Pradipa Panjika, that practicing the muttering of mantras and the visualizations without an empowerment or consecration leads, quote, rebirth in hell, to the ineffectiveness of the mantra, and one's body being wasted in mental afflictions, unquote. So the example that Atīśa mentions is specifically the sadhanas of Venerable Tārā. So I'm emphasizing that you should definitely not attempt to practice any of these sadhanas unless you have received an empowerment of Tārā, and then you should consult a qualified Lama first before engaging in practices related to Tārā. So I'm mainly discussing today the history and development of Tārā, as well as the structure of Atīśa's system of 21 Tāras. Now, with regards to the first slide then, before actually going into the Atīśa system of 21 Tāras, I'll provide some historical background about her development. And so, I don't know, we have the first slide up here. Is there yeah. So Tārā then is a bodhisattva savioress. She's perhaps one of the earliest and most important Buddhist goddesses that develops in India. Not only is she worshipped in India, but she's traditionally venerated with great devotion in Tibet, Nepal, and Mongolia. So now in the digital age, we can study and worship her worldwide. The etymology of the word Tārā has two connotations. So the first is star, particularly of the pole star, Dhruvya Tārā, which acts as a guide for wayfarers, navigators, and travelers going by land or sea. The second is the savioress, which is derived from the causative form of the Sanskrit root tree, Tarayati, meaning one who causes to cross over difficulty, rescuing, or one who saves. So a Sanskrit verse will say that the eminent sages call her Tārā because of Tara Yashami, that she causes the worshippers to cross the ocean of many dangers. And so her name can mean literally star, or is related to the savioress. She helps to cross over the ocean of ignorance. In Tibetan, she's known as Doma, which also means savioress, as she delivers from sufferings. So she is thought to be a miraculous female bodhisattva or female Buddha who has legendary beginnings. So she'll have great influence for her beginnings as a guide to seafarers across dangerous waters in the dark night sky. And some scholars have theorized it may be related to other ancient goddesses in the Middle East, for instance. She could have her hypothetical origins as a nocturnal celestial guide, guiding through the external dangers of oceans, waves, fires, epidemics, and wild beasts. So not only does she become a protector of external impediments, but she's also a protector against internal afflictions. And so one way to think about Tārā is a hypostasis, or an embodiment of the ability to be liberated from obstacles. Now, in regards to Tāra's early beginnings, it's not quite clear what her historical beginnings are. As I'll mention, in Buddhist legend, we have the Buddhist legend of Janachandra, Yeshidawa. So this is related by Taranatha in his Golden Rosary on the origins of Tārā, Tantra. And so in the beginning, we don't have Sanskrit manuscripts, but we do have this legendary account. And so Taranatha relates that in a time, in a world called Manifold Light, there arose a Tathagata Lord called Dumbiswara, sound of the drum. And it was at that time the king's daughter was named Janachandra, Yeshidawa, moon of knowledge. And she greatly followed and revered the Buddha's discourses at that time. She worshipped the Buddha together with his infinite retinue community of Shravakas and Bodhisattvas for over millions of years. And so the monks urged her, they said, quote, "If you aspire to serve the teachings of the Buddha, due to your own roots of virtue, you will become a man in this very life. In order for it to turn out the way, it is proper for you to do so accordingly," unquote. But after engaging in dialogue with these monks, the king's princess daughter challenged conventional social realities at the time, favoring men and she offered a rationale for her necessity to remain in female Buddhist form. So Princess Janachandra said, quote, "There is neither man nor woman, nor self, nor personhood. Attachment to designations, male or female, is meaningless and deludes worldly people with poor understanding," unquote. Then she vowed, "There are many who desire awakening in a man's body, but not even a single person strives for the benefit of sentient beings in a woman's body. Therefore, I shall work for the benefit of sentient beings in a woman's body for as long as samsara has not been emptied." So what this scripture presents is the legendary beginnings of Tārā as Janachandra. So she was among Shravakas, and then she vowed, cultivated bodhicitta, the awakening mind, and then made a vow to appear as an awakened being in a woman's body, a woman's form, for as long as samsara has not been emptied. And so at first, then she manifests as the accompaniment of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. And then later she becomes known as a female Buddha. So this shows for Buddhists the previous development of Tārā in previous lifetimes as Princess Janachandra. Now, from another standpoint, in terms of empirical detectability in the human sciences, we don't have solid evidence either textually or epigraphically for Tārā before the 5th century. She comes to the forefront in Buddhist texts from the 5th century of the Common Era onward, and there has been many different theorizations about the beginnings of Tārā. No one knows for sure where the Buddhist origin, if she has a Buddhist origin or if she comes from an influence of Brahmanical Hindu tradition. And so the next point is that she may be influenced by Brahmanical Devi or Durga. That is, we don't have evidence of Tārā as an independent goddess prior to the Gupta period in India. And so she may have, some scholars have theorized that she may become a Buddhist hypothesis of feminine awakened forces due to intercultural competitive developments with the Hindu deities Durga or Devi in the 5th century. But textually speaking, the next point, please, is that her earliest personification appears to be in what's a text called the Manjushri Mula Kalpa, which is the fundamental ordinance of Manjushri. And in the Manjushri Mula Kalpa, she appears as Avalokiteshvara's compassion, that is, as an aspect of Avalokiteshvara. And in some variant legends, Tārā is believed to have been born from a blue ray of light, which emanated from the eye of the Buddha of infinite light, Amitabha. Other legends will say around this time that the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara surveyed the sufferings of the universe. Tears fell into a valley and formed a lake out of which grew the lotus from which Tārā appeared. So she is said to be the physical manifestation of the compassion of Avalokiteshvara, who himself is the quintessential essence of the compassion of the Buddhas. But there are also formative influences from the Buddhist goddess Prajna Paramita, the perfection of wisdom. And this will also influence the divine character of Tārā. So she becomes a female Buddha in her development in history. Next slide, please. So Tārā first assimilates the qualities of an advanced bodhisattva in the Manjushri Mula Kalpa, that is the fundamental ordinance of Manjushri. This is going to be one of the earliest evidence, and then she'll be appropriated in what's called the Tārā Mula Kalpa. And she'll assimilate the 8 dangers from Avalokiteshvara, or protection as a savior is from 8 dangers. So she is especially renowned here at first as Ashtabhaya Trana Tārā, Tārā who protects from 8 fears, because of her ability to deliver those who call upon her from facing 8 great fears, which here are listed early as lions, elephants, fire, snakes, thieves, water, imprisonment, and demons. And many tales are told about her miraculous interventions in protecting from these fears. But these Ashtabhaya, and in Tibetan they're called Jikpa Chimboge in Tibetan, they will also come to symbolize internal rather than external obstacles. So here water will be related to, for instance, water will be related to drowning. Robbers are going to be related to false views. Lions are internally pride. Snakes are internally jealousy. Fire is internally anger. Flesh-eating demons will be internally doubt. Imprisonment will be internally correlated with greed. And then the fear of elephants will be internally correlated with ignorance. So she replicates herself in order to save devotees from the 8 great fears, each of which has great symbolic meaning. And so these will be, it's thought by scholars to be appropriated from the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. And then these fears also actually go back perhaps even into the ancient Vedic literature as well. Now, Tārā is also the mother of the Buddhas. And this is perhaps derived from the perfection of wisdom, the Prajna Paramita. And so the perfection of wisdom, the Prajna Paramita, is thought to be the mother of the Buddhas. And we can read, for instance, in the Ashtasahasrika Prajna Paramita, the 8,000-line perfection of wisdom, that the goddess perfection of wisdom is a source of light who removes darkness. She gives shelter. She brings light. She's the mother of bodhisattvas. She protects the unprotected. She's the antidote of birth and death, this perfection of wisdom. And also the Prajna Paramita will be called a great vidya, or a knowledge awareness spell. And so this vidya is a very important aspect of Tārā as well. And so the perfection of wisdom is considered a mother of different spiritual beings because she is their cause. So Tārā is the mother of Buddhas because she is the cause of spiritualization, realizations, engendering the wisdom which leads across the ocean of some existence. So from Prajna Paramita, Tārā inherits these qualities. And so Tārā embodies wisdom and insight which crosses the ocean of ignorance and gives birth to awakened beings. So that's the initial phase, is mother of Buddhas. But in the devotional literature, quite quickly, Tārā develops from being the mother of Buddhas to being a universal mother, Vishvamata, or supreme mother, or Lokamata, mother of the world. And so in the biography of Machik Labdran, the renowned 11th century Tibetan tantric Buddhist master and yogini, who herself was considered an incarnation of Tārā, there's an episode where Tārā tells her, quote, "The great mother is the void of all the dharmas which we call the mother of all creation. The mother is the mother of the Buddhas of the 3 times, the dharmata of the absolute state beyond all obstructions, the pure essence of egoless voidness, prajna," unquote. So we'll see also in the Tārā Tantra, when Manjushri asks the Buddha why Tārā is called the mother of the Buddhas, the Bhagavan replies, "Manjushri, what you say is indeed true. The Buddhas of the 3 times are not born and do not cease. They are neither defiled nor free of defilement. They do not increase or decrease and are by nature nirvana. Thus, they are the very nature of all beings." The Bodhisattva youthful Manjushri then asks, "Blessed One, if the Buddhas of the 3 times are not born and do not cease, are neither defiled nor free of defilement, do not increase or decrease, and are by nature nirvana, how do they take birth?" The Blessed One replied, "Manjushri, nirvana is the ultimate. Nirvana is the realm of phenomena. These are all synonyms for the very limit of reality. Great compassion and relative essence are synonyms for samsara. Beyond these is the mother who gives birth to the Buddhas of the 3 times. Thus, she is beyond samsara and nirvana. Manjushri, this is why Tārā is considered a mother." So Tārā then is, after these tantras, Tara's further development is what's called the Tārā Mula Kalpa. And so this is a very long tantric scripture that's formative for the worship of Tārā. And we see in this scripture a whole number of epithets, iconographical forms, ritual procedures, mandalas, how to paint her on cloth and make offerings and so forth. And so within the Tārā Mula Kalpa, Tārā is referred to as Bhagavad Arya Tārā, which is a blessing knowable Tārā, the noble being, the female Buddha, Arya Tārā. And so she takes a number of forms and becomes quite important. What we see is that the ritual structure of Tārā in this Tārā Mula Kalpa is patterned after the Manjushri Mula Kalpa. In fact, the first 13 chapters of the Tārā Mula Kalpa are going to be copied from the Manjushri Mula Kalpa. And so the authorial community who created the Tārā Mula Kalpa was thinking with the structure that's found in the Manjushri Mula Kalpa. And this Tārā Mula Kalpa is the scripture. Atīśa is the one who brought this scripture to Tibet. but it was thought to be too esoteric and was not initially translated for over 250 years. So in relation to the Manjushri Mulakalpa and this Tārā Mulakalpa, she has four main forms, and these are going to be golden, white, green, and black. And these qualities of gold, white, green, and black will be associated with various types of awakened activities. So golden enlightened activities are activity that increases positive qualities, conducive to long life, peace, and happiness. White is going to be associated with a pacified awakened activity that overcomes sickness and obstacles. So as we'll see, Sita Tara will be a creamy white color from form of Tara, which is associated with long life and health. Green is going to be what's unique to the Buddhists. And so Shama Tara becomes one of the most important forms of Tara. And she's a combined activity of these other forms. So green signifies all inspiring activity. Shama Tara is known as green, and she has green color eyes even. She'll be one of the most important forms that are brought to Tibet. Then finally, we have the black or blue form, which is going to be associated with wrathful awakening activity, involving the use of forcible methods for accomplishing activities that could not otherwise be accomplished by other means. So these are some of the ritual forms that she has in the Manjushri Mulakalpa and the Tārā Mulakalpa. And there'll be more extensive forms that she takes over the course of her development. Then, likewise, both of these tantric works refer to her as Bhagavati Aryatara. And then she will be known as a Vidya, which is going to be a sequence of sacred syllables to evoke a female deity's presence or an appearance. So in the Tārā Mulakalpa, this is a Vidya. A Vidya is going to be a female euphonic combination of sounds to invoke a presence. And then a mantra will be associated with male deities. So for instance, a mantra evokes Manjushri, the male bodhisattva wisdom, and a Vidya will evoke Tara, this feminine force. And so what we see in the Tārā Mulakalpa is that she becomes blessed as for the practitioner who focuses on her and awakens to her Vidya. She is known as a blessed queen of awakened awareness. And so this is where it first indicates the capability of liberating the practitioner who identifies with her in meditation. Next slide, please. So Tara, as her literature develops, she embodies a whole number of qualities. And so another important text here will be related to Tara is called the Tara on the Origin of the Rites of Tara, Mother of all Tathagatas, which is in Sanskrit, Sarva Tathagata Matar Tara Vishvakarma Bhava Tantra. I'll call this the Tara Tantra for short. And so this is a very important type of Tantra in which it comes to the most complete thing or closest thing that we have to a complete Tantra on the practice of the cult of Tara in India. And it appears rather late and to be synthetic, but it's considered an action Tantra that offers a wealth of instructions on the rites associated with the goddess Tara. And so the Tara Tantra is framed as a dialogue between the Bodhisattva Manjushri and the Buddha Shakyamuni, and is divided into 35 chapters on specific themes and ritual topics. And in this Tantra, she takes on numerous forms. Chapter 3 occurs the presentation of the praise to Tara with 21 verses of homage. That's what we'll be focusing on later this morning, when she takes on 21 forms. That's actually taken from this third chapter of this Tantra on the origin of all rites of Tara, mother of all Tathagatas. And so Atīśa Sadhana in part is derived from the Tara Tantra, providing 21 forms as expressed as a Dharani. Now she appears then in Mahayoga and Yogini Tantras. And actually this third chapter that I mentioned, chapter 3 of the Tara Tantra, is separately translated as a single text in the Tibetan canon and is listed among texts of highest Yoga Tantra. And it is called the Praise of the Bhagavati Tara proclaimed by the perfectly complete Buddha. Chumdendema droma la yandakbar zukbe sange terpa sungpa. So the praise of the Bhagavati Tara proclaimed by the perfectly complete Buddha. Then she appears also in the Guhya Samaja Tantra as a consort of Amoga Siddhi, and also in the Vajradhatu Mandala, is associated with her green dark color, Shamatara, as a consort of Amoga Siddhi. And so she also represents the wind element in these esoteric discourses. There'll be different types of elements that are transformed and correlated with awakened energies. So Tārā is the wind element, for instance. Lochana is the earth element. Mamaki is the water element. Pandaras Vasini is the fire element. Dharmadhatu Vajra represents space. So Tārā appears in these esoteric scriptures as a consort of Amoghasiddhi and has the wind element. She also has a number of praises and sadhanas related to practice and worship of Tārā. And these will be especially important if you look in the book by Martin Wilson, Praise of Tārā, in Praise of Tārā, Songs to the Saviors. He provides a number of praises by Indian masters like Chandra Goman and Akshobhya Vajra, and Tibetan masters like Geden Drupa and Lodru Gatso. Now, along these lines as well, she has numerous forms that occur in the Sadhana Mala, the garland of methods, which in Tibetan is called the Druptap Gatso, the ocean of sadhanas, or ocean of methods. It's an important compendium of 300 individual tantric sadhanas, which were composed around the 11th and 12th centuries. So a sadhana, which we'll be discussing today, is a method or technique designed to receive attainments from a tantric esoteric Buddhist deity. And so the sadhana mala is an manual of practice, and there's a great number of sadhanas in there. There's also a number of Tārā sadhanas, such as Vajra Tārā, or for instance, Janguli Tārā. So Janguli Tārā protects against snake bite, for instance. And so she was a favorite form in India to protect against the numerous snakes. Then, as I mentioned, there'll be 21 Tāras, which we'll be discussing today. And they are found, some of them are found individually in the Sadhana Mala, but they are mainly found in generated from these praises of the 21 Tāras. Next slide, please. Now, before we get into the forms of Tārā and the 21 forms, I wanted just to briefly mention about how the forms manifest. And this is going to be based on what's called the Compendium of the Great Vehicle, the Mahayana Sangraha, or Tekpa Chimbo Dupa, the Tekdu. And so in the Tārā manifests as a Buddha for Atīśa, and these are based on what's called the realm of reality, the Dharmadhatu or Dharmakaya. And these are based on the principles of awakened activity, Trinley, outlined in the Mahayana Sangraha, the summary of the Great Vehicle, which was an important treatise of the Yogacara school composed by the 4th century master Asanga. Then the master Vasubandhu wrote a sub-commentary to this text, and Atīśa translated this commentary into Tibetan. And this work, Atīśa, that he translated contains a number of important points that Atīśa actually follows on subtle points of Buddhist Buddhology. So as a Buddha, Tārā possesses the 3 bodies, the Buddha bodies, the Buddhakaya. So the first is going to be the eminent and transcendent Dharmakaya, this reality body, this one with ultimate reality and is formless and indescribable. As I've mentioned, Tārā is described in terms like prajna paramita, being unproduced and unceasing, without decrease or increase, by nature and nirvana, synonymous with the Dharmadhatu, the realm of reality. And this will be similar to the description of the realm of reality that Atīśa describes in the initial verses of his Song for the Vision for the Realm of Reality. And this also is related very strongly to the fact that Atīśa is a Mahasangika monk. And the Mahasangikas will place emphasis on this notion of Dharmadhatu, and then also being correlated with Dharmakaya as found in Mahayana sources. Next, then, based on the Dharmakaya, the reality body, you have what's called the communal enjoyment body, the Sambhogakaya. And this refers to the manifestations that appear in a divine body of the goddess. And so this embodiment will encompass her many epiphanies and the works of art that represent her. And so then the emanation body is the Namanakaya, is which she appears in the human realm. And so Tārā may manifest among humans by adopting the illusory appearance of a woman and by acting through human women of sufficient spiritual attainment to embody her presence. So the 21 forms in Atīśa's text appear to be communal enjoyment bodies, Sambhogakaya, as they are visualized. Tibetan commentators to the praise to Tārā with 21 verses of homage such as Drachma Gyaltsen and Gedan Drupa, the first Dalai Lama, they will differ as to which enjoyment body forms are peaceful and which are wrathful. So that's just a little bit about how theoretically the forms of Tārā manifest. Next slide, please. Now, over the decades then and centuries that her practice has brought from Indian Buddhism to Tibet, her major forms will be among 5 major groups. So one will be, the first one here is Tārā without specification. And this refers to the numerous local and regional forms of Tārā that she may appear in throughout Tibet, Nepal, and also in India, right? In India, in the 11th to 12th centuries, there'll be actually Tārā temples throughout from all the way in the west, Gujarat, all the way over to Bengal. So these will be local. Tārā without specification refers to local emanations of Tārā. Then you have Shamatara or Joljang and White Tārā, Jolkar. These are the 2 primary well-known forms, Green Tārā and White Tārā. Then we have the 8-fold Tārā protecting from 8 fears, the Ashtamabhaya Tārā, Jikpa Le Kope Droma. And then today's subject matter is going to be the 21 Tārās, which is the Namastara Eka Vimshati, or the Doma Nishustachik. Then you also have specific manifestations. So this 4th grouping, which enumerates 21 Tārās, is the focus of this morning's presentation. And by the time of Atīśa's life, the Buddhist goddess Tārā will be a full-fledged feminine force, worshipped and esoterically evoked for apotropic and soteriological functions, among others. Next slide, please. Now, among those, the 4th category of systems of 21 Tārās, there'll be 5 systems of 21 forms of Tārā found in Indian and Tibetan Buddhism. So these include the systems of Suryagupta. And so Suryagupta was a Kashmiri teacher famous for popularizing the practice of Tārā with complicated iconographic forms for each form of Tārā. And this is what a number of books are based upon, such as In Praise of Tārā, or even the Cult of Tārā. Suryagupta's system is also the most commented on, but it's actually later than the second one, which is Atīśa. The Atīśa system, which we'll be talking about today, is very simple and straightforward, but it's also the earliest. Then you have another form of the 21 Tārās is what's called the Sadhana Samuchaya. And then you also have Nyingma forms, which are related to Jigme Lingpa, based on the Longchen Nitik. And this descends from Longchen Rabjampa Jima Urse, who lived in the 14th century. And then you also have the system of Chokyu Lingpa. So Atīśa's system is going to be the earliest evocation practice of the 21 forms brought to Tibet and is revealed to Atīśa by Tārā herself. Next slide, please. So the worship of Tārā begins with his propagation of Buddhism, and we see Atīśa throughout his life. He brings her practice, and she is present throughout his life through a whole number of visions. And so Tārā will appear to him, just like we almost see in this image that was kept at Reiting Monastery, this very famous image, just like Shamatara here. And so she's going to guide him. Even when he was a child, she will become his patron goddess, traditionally thought to be from influence from former lifetimes. So Tārā will predict when he consults her that if he makes the journey to Tibet, his life will be shortened by 20 years, but that he will bring great amount of benefit to the Tibetan people and to the Buddha Dharma. So he makes the decision to go to Tibet despite the prophecy of his life being shortened. And then this text that we're talking about today, the system of 21 Tārās, he will receive a vision of this while he is circumambulating at Bodhgaya or Vajrasana, the diamond seat. He will receive he will be reciting the praise of 21 Tārās, and he will receive guidance from her based on this manuscript that we're discussing today. So this transmission of the lost manuscript will be lost after the 13th century, according to the colophon, which we're going to discuss. But this is also illustrated by the fact that there's a Tārā temple preserved in Natang, where Atīśa passed away. And the temple there is called the Doma Lakhang, and it's related to Atīśa and the 21 forms. However, all 21 forms in the present-day temple in Lhasa, or outside of Lhasa, southeast of Lhasa, in Natang, they are all painted gold. And so that shows, what we'll see today is that actually the Tāras have different colors and different functions. And so the fact that they've been all covered in gold signifies that this particular lineage has been perhaps not continued on. And so here we see a commissioned painting of Tārā, of Shama Tārā, which is green. And this is a rare painting that's kept in the Walters Museum. And I can remember seeing this in person when it was on tour back in 2003 in Birmingham, Alabama. I was a professor, visiting professor in the University of Alabama. So I made the trip over to Birmingham to see this. And I can remember staring at it for about 30 minutes, as long as I could, because this it comes from Rating Monastery, and it may have been commissioned not shortly after Atīśa's life, or Atīśa might have seen it himself. It has writing in Sanskrit and Tibetan on the back, and then also the style of the artist is Indian. So there isn't, well, it is known that some Indian artisans came to Rating to paint these, and so this image from Walter's Museum of Shama Tārā is very auspicious. Now, his charismatic, Atīśa's charismatic devotion to the goddess was the impetus for the worship of Tārā and up to the present day. And in fact, he will translate over 117 different works. And so only 4 of those are going to be related to Tārā. But then also Atīśa will translate 77 texts, and 6 of those will deal with Tārā. And he will also bring the practice of white Tārā from Vaga Ishvara Kirti, which will be called cheating death. So the whole ritual edifice of worshiping Tārā in Tibet is built upon the major works of Atīśa. And so I included in Illuminators several that are not so well known. And one of these is going to be called, in Illuminator, pages 233 to 234, the praise to Tārā as the 3 jewels. And so here we see Tārā becomes this all-encompassing deity for Atīśa, and becomes the fulcrum of practice. So as well known, right, all Buddhists take refuge in the 3 jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the teacher, teaching, and the community, 3 times a day, or twice a day, 3 times at least. And so here Atīśa is transforming the 3 jewels and relating them to Tārā. And so what we see, for instance, on page 233 is that he'll pay homage to Tārā as the Buddha, who eliminates wrong views, ignorance, lethargy, the supreme wisdom pervading all object of knowledge, she who has attained complete, perfect excellence. That shows Tārā as the Buddha. And it shows also she's represented as omniscient wisdom, the influence of Prajna Paramita. Then it says, with regards to the Dharma, homage to you, Tārā, the noble Dharma, great bliss, peaceful nirvana, the 10-letter supreme noble Dharma, the method of the 10 perfections. And so this way of going to refuge for Tārā as the Dharma is going to refuge to the great bliss of peaceful nirvana embodied in her 10-lettered root mantra, Om Tare Tutare Turi Soha. And then the 10 perfections are generosity, morality, patience, vigor, generosity, morality, patience, concentration, wisdom, skill and means, resolution, strength, and knowledge. So when taking refuge as Tārā as a form of the Dharma embodies these 10 perfections. And then finally, he gives praise to Tārā as the Sangha, or spiritual community. And here he says, homage to Tārā, the spiritual community, the secret body, speech, and mind of the Sugatas of the 3 times, the aggregation of wisdom dakinis. And so this type of embodiment that shows the tantric type aspect as the aggregation of these wisdom dakinis, the feminine forces of energies within the secret esoteric Buddhist practices. And so this little short text then shows how Tārā can embody the 3 jewels. Also, another text is going to be the protection from the 8 fears, as we've already discussed. And so here, Atīśa discusses the outer and then also the inner impediments and obstacles that green Tārā can protect against. And so this is a very brief text on the protection of the 8 fears. Then another text that he gives is going to be is a very short meditation called next slide or button, please. The next little yes, abridged clear realization of Tārā. This is the Arya Tārā Abhisamaya Pandartha, right? And so this abridged clear realization of Tārā, it shows how to visualize Tārā as a Buddha, and then one practices the recitations of visualizations and receives protections from tigers, bears, grizzly bears, snakes, deer, and creatures in the water that will be unable to subdue you through this practice. And so this is another example of the protective, clear realizations that noble Tārā can give or provide to the practitioner. And so Tārā here is a very important late phase Indian esoteric Buddhist Buddha. And it's one of the main practices that Atīśa brought to Tibet and is continued on to this day in Tibetan forms of Buddhism, both in mainstream Mahayana and advanced esoteric practices. So here then we get to finally the text for today. So next slide, please. And this is going to be a system, Atīśa's system of 21 Tāras, and it's going to be based on 2 works, manuscripts, the Dromé Lungten Bekor, which is the cycle of prophecies granted by Tārā to Atīśa, and then the Doma Nishu Sachiki Drupta Jowa Jelu. So Atīśa's system is called the Jowa Jelu, and there'll be other systems as we mentioned. And so this means for attainment of the 21 Tāras, I read through these several years ago and realized that these manuscripts match the teachings. And so then I compared and then did a text critical or prepared a text critical edition and hopefully smoothed out the readings as well as the mantras. And so the 21 Tāras I'm presenting today are going to be based on the manuscript, not necessarily on the painting. However, this painting here shows the proper visualization practice, which begins with green Tārā. So as we'll see, Atīśa's these manuscripts precede any known artwork for they're 300 years older than any other artwork. Also, they're several hundred years older than the Suryagupta forms of practice and visualization. So next slide, please. So here we see the manuscript colophon. And so this, as it states here, the lineage of practice is Venerable Tārā, Lord Atīśa, Dromten, Sharwapa, Dromten Wangchuk Drak, Saturn Sakya Shunu, Dawa Drak Sarma, Rongten Sakya Gyaltsen, and then Kachen Lodru Gyaltsen. So after Atīśa's revelation to Atīśa, the lineage begins with Atīśa's disciple Dromten Gawe Jungne. And so in his life, it's said that he recorded Dromten translated the 21 praises at Naitong toward the end of Atīśa's life. And so this Atīśa's 21 Tāras was never included in any Tibetan Tengyur or official register of Tibetan canonical works. So according to the accounts of recent Tibetan traditions, Atīśa's teachings that were not included in the Tibetan Tengyur were transmitted orally among his Tibetan disciples. And so if the Tibetan text found in these 2 manuscripts of Atīśa's 21 Tāras was translated by Atīśa and Dromten around 1050 CE, this would make it the earliest extant Tibetan edition of the praise to Tārā with 21 verses of homage, as well as the earliest Tibetan ritual text on the 21 Tāras. This is because until now, the canonical Tibetan translation of the praise of Tārā in 21 verses is attributed to Nyan Lotsawa Dharma Drak, who was a colleague of Ra Lotsawa, and that's in the late 11th century. And then also the 5 commentarial works on the 21 Tāras of Suryagupta were also translated into Tibetan after the 11th century. So most, if not all, studies on the 21 Tāras are based on the commentarial exegesis of Suryagupta's system, whether that is the traditional commentary of the first Dalai Lama, or Gedendrup Pazangpo, or the advanced tantric understanding of Taranata Kunganingpo, or even found in the modern studies by Wilson and Bayer and so forth. So here, after Dromten, the lineage of the teachings was transmitted among Kadampa figures, such as Podawa, and then also Dromten Wangchuk Drak. These are going to be figures at Sangpu Monastery. And colophon matches the reading transmission of the 5th Dalai Lama, Namwan Losang Gyatso, for the 21 Tāras, up to the time of Rangtun Chakya Gyaltsen, who lived from 1367 to 1449. That's going to be preserved in one of the manuscripts. But the lineage recorded after that goes to what's called, it says, Dawa Draksar, or excuse me, Da Draksarma, New Chandakirti. And this is thought by some scholars, it's not actually a name, it's actually thought to be a group of scholars who studied at Tsangpo and were influential on Rangtun Chakya Gyaltsen in the new teachings of Chandakirti that were brought. So in any case, this ends with an unidentified figure whose name is Kachen Lodru Gyaltsen in the 15th century. And this appears to have been the 13th abbot of Sokpa Gedan Gang, and this is actually a wandering monastic community associated with the Jodan Sokpa Deshi. So this was found in the region of Nemo in eastern Song. So this may explain why these teachings of transmissions eventually disappeared. They were transferred from Atīśa to Kadam to Sakyapa, and then perhaps wandering monastic communities, and the manuscripts were recovered by Kagyu. Next slide, please. Now, what we see then in the Atīśa system then is that it predates all extant artwork by over 300 years. And so Atīśa's 21 Tārās Sādhana begins with instruction to visualize a green Tārā. This confirms with later textual tradition and oral tradition that the 21 forms of Tārā arise from a green-colored Tārā. So green is, as we mentioned, associated with the performance of all activities, as mentioned by Buddha Guya. So Buddha, this famous 8th century master Buddha Guya, in his commentary to the Mahavarochana Abhisambodhi Tantra, he says, quote, "Light green is a mixture of white, blue, and yellow. The symbolism of these colors is as follows. White signifies pacifying, yellow signifies enriching, and blue signifies subduing. And their mixture into one color signifies the performance of all these activities." So the practice beginning with green Tārā signifies her embodiment of all activities. Now, also along these lines, Atīśa is thinking about Tārā, or the praises of Tārā, in Sanskrit. And so the praise of Tārā with 21 verses of homage is preserved even in Tibetan translation. It's preserved, the Sanskrit is preserved in the 3rd chapter of the Tārā Tantra. And we can infer this by the fact that not only was Atīśa a fully trained Indian Buddhist Bengali Pandita, but he also closely follows the Sanskrit of the verses and the names that he applies to the 21 Tāras. So, for example, Atīśa names the 9th form Triratna Mudra Anka rather than Varada Tārā, as found in Wilson. Or the 10th form he'll call Maraloka Vashamkari rather than Shoka Vinodana Tārā. Or the 16th form, Atīśa will refer to her as Vidyahumkara Dipita rather than Raga Nisudana Tārā. So he's naming a number of these Tāras based on the 4th pada, or the 4th part of the verse that it has the embodiment of her qualities. So that kind of shows that he's thinking with the praises in Sanskrit. And also here, it's important that a later Tibetan artistic tradition will be working with the Tibetan language and Tibetan oral tradition, particularly based off of Suryagupta and other lineages, and other lineages of Atīśas as well. Not this one that happened to be transmitted by early Kadampas and Sakyapas. So in Atīśa's system, all the forms of Tārā have the same bodily shape, with one face and 2 arms, but they differ as to individual color and the different colored vase that each Tārā holds in her outstretched hand. This pattern of color and form matches the system associated with Nagarjuna. So it's often thought in Tibetan tradition that Atīśa and Nagarjuna system are quite similar, if not the same. Now, also here, the names of the Tāras and the content of verses will differ slightly from the commentators like that of the 1st Dalai Lama Gedan Drupa, as well as the Jonangpa master Taranata Kunga Ningpo. So for instance, So the praises of Tārā with 21 verses may be interpreted from different standpoints. So for instance, the first Dalai Lama, Gedon Drupa, he interprets this as what's called a Kriya Tantra. That is, the deity is external to oneself and one visualizes her and so forth. Whereas Taranata will classifies and interprets the work as a Yoga Niruttara Tantra. That is, the tantras of the highest or Niruttara division of the yoga class. So for Taranata, he will interpret the verses according to correlating her epithets and qualities with inner yogic processes. So in other words, Tārā, like most kind of deities, will have an outer, inner, and secret form. And so what's interesting here is that in the Bodhimarga Pradipa Panjika, Atīśa's commentary to the lamp for the path to awakening, Atīśa will classify this work as a Kalpa Tantra. And this is kind of unique classification of tantras. And so in general, Kalpa Tantras will teach mundane rituals for healing and gaining magical power, and it does not necessarily direct the performer to any spiritual level. However, in this sadhana that we're discussing today, Atīśa's sadhana on the praise of the 21 Tāras, the yogin is instructed to visualize in the space before one a green-colored Tārā, present mental offerings to her, praise and make supplications, and then with each mental prostration for each and every homage, light rays will emerge from the heart of that particular Tārā, touch one's body, touch one's speech, and touch one's heart, and purify the obstructions of body, speech, and mind, cleaning the latencies of clinging and attachment. Then one was instructed to visualize the venerable Tārā becoming indistinguishable with oneself, like a dream illusion. Then one recites the praises 3 times, 7 times, and so forth until Vajratara, and then at the end, Vajratara, or I should say venerable Tārā, dissolves into the crown of one's head. So here then, we can now begin to just go over these 21 forms in brief. Next slide, please. So what I'll be presenting is just the name, the color, the mantra, and her function. And also I'll mention the benefit statement. As I mentioned, it's very important to receive consecration in these forms. Now, the first form here is noble Tārā, swift and heroic, right? So the verse in English will say, right, homage to Tārā, quick and heroic, whose glance is instantaneous like lightning. You arose from the heart of the blossoming lotus. That is the face of the Lord of the 3 worlds. So here she's called Arya Tārā, and she's red. And then her mantra, and I've edited these, but as I say, if you want to have the understanding and transmission, it's very important to receive a consecration from a lama and spiritual teacher, and they will provide the understanding of the higher understanding of these mantras. I'm just giving what I've edited. So here the mantra is Om Tari Tutari Turi Vasham Kuru Swaha. And so here the function will be subjugation. Now, if you notice here in each one, and then the benefit for this is that by reciting, one will be able to subdue hindrances and the misguided. Now, if you notice, Tara's root mantra is Om Tare Tutare Turi Soha. And so Tare Tutare Ture will be repeated throughout these mantras. And so, of course, Om is the universal beginning mantra that has relations to body, speech, and mind, and there's a whole number of teachings about Om. Then this Tare Tutare Ture addresses the goddess in the vocative, and it seems that with the middle word modified with an initial T for the sake of rhythm. And so you have this idea of Tara as a causative derivative of tree, to cross. And then the idea is Uttara is pull up from, like from the ocean, Uttare. And then you have the nominal, the third epithet is Tura, which means swift. So you could translate, quickly, Om Tara, quickly rescued from suffering, quick one, hail, and then the extra here will the Vasham Kuru and so forth will need to be received in a consecration. Then at the end you have Soha. So mantras will often end with Pe or Soha, And so Soha is very ancient. It goes back to Vedic times when the Brahmins would throw ghee into the sacrificial fire. The offering is Soha. So this is like an offering type statement, right? So you have Om Tare Tutare Turi Vasham Kuru Soha. And so that's the first form here. And all forms will have one face with two arms. And the left arm will have the Utpala flower and then a different vase visualized with those qualities. So this differs from Suryagupta's system. Then the next form of Tara is going to be the Venerable Sita Tara, and her color is white. And so Om Tari Tutari Turi Shantim Kuruhu Swaha, and her function is pacifying. So the homage will say, homage to you whose face resembles 100 autumn full moons gathered. Your brilliant radiance blazes like 1,000 clusters of stars. And so by reciting her mantra, one will pacify all disease, misfortune, obstructing forces, and unharmonious factors. All peaceful actions will be achieved. So along these lines, as the instruction says, Atīśa, he mentions, you can visualize these taras, each one, and then and reciting the praises in sets of 3 or 7. And then Lama Zopa will often also mention that one can focus on individual forms and their mantras, right? So then we have the third form is going to be the Venerable Tara, the color of gold, Kanaka Varna Tara. And so her mantra is Om Tare Tutare Ture Pustim Kuru Saha. And so the praise says, homage to you, Golden One, whose hand is adorned with a blue lotus flower, whose field of activity is generosity, diligence, austerity, serenity, patience, and concentration. And so Atīśa will say that her benefit is the reciting of her mantra and practice will be longevity, good fortune, and resources will increase. Then we have the next slide is the Venerable Tara, who is completely victorious, the jewel on the Tathagata's crown. So this is Ushnisha Vijaya Tara. And remember, Taranata and other scholars too will interpret these as very high level yogic processes as well. So you have both inner, outer, and secret forms of each one of these forms of Tara. So here, her mantra is Om Tare Tutare Turi Ayuj Nana Soha. And so this is increasing knowledge and life. And so the praise says, homage to you whose triumphs are endless, jewel on the Tathagata's crown. You are well attended by the sons of the victorious one who have attained all the perfections. So Atīśa will say, by reciting this benefit, the lifespan will increase from 10 years to up to 100. The next form of Tara then is going to be the Venerable Tara who utters Hum. So this is Humswara Nadini Tara. And so she represents a kind of combination color, an orange. And so Om Tare Tutare Turi so-and-so Aksharya Hri Swaha. So this is where you have to go to the Lama and spiritual teacher to know this one. And so the benefit will be that one will be able to influence objects of one's awareness. So the praise says, homage to Tara, who with whom fulfills all wishes to the bounds of space. You trample the 7 worlds underfoot and possess the strength to summon all. The next form and then is going to be Noble Tara, victorious over the 3 worlds. So this is Trailokya Vijaya Tara, and she'll be dark red. And so her mantra, according to Atīśa, is going to be Om Tare Tutare Ture Shatrum Gachata Swaha. And so the praise says, homage to you, praised by Shakra, Agni, Brahma, Maruts, and Shiva. The hosts of the Bhutas, Vedalas, Gandharvas, and Yakshas pay tribute to you. So the benefit is that by reciting her and focusing on her form, harmful spirits, Shiva gods, and earth spirits, and all great forces will become your servant, according to Atīśa. Then we have the next one is going to be Vadi Pradarka Tara, and her color is black. And so the mantra is Om Tare Tutare Ture Bodzur Sarva Dokjo Swoha. Now here, Lama Zopa, right, in his book, Lama Zopa, he has a book, Power of Mantra. He will explain some of these things once one receives a consecration, right? So here it says in the praise, homage to you with Tre and Pei, crush the magical devices of other traditions with your right leg bent and your left leg extended, you shine amid flames blazing wildly. And Atīśa says in the benefit statement, by reciting this and focusing on this form, all contemptible sorcerer spells will be overturned. Then we have the 8th form is the noble Tārā who conquers Maras and enemies. The Mara Sudana Vishita Mada Tārā, dark red. And her mantra is going to be Om Tārā Tutari Turi so-and-so Amuka Maraye Pe. So this one ends a little bit differently. And so here the praise says, homage to Tūra, the fearsome lady, destroyer of the most powerful demons. With your lotus face and stern frown, you are the slayer of each and every foe, unquote. And so here Atīśa says the benefit will be that by reciting all maras and enemies will be overturned. Then the 9th form is going to be the Tārā whose mudra displays the 3 jewels, the Aryatarya Triratna Mudra Anka. And so her color is white, and her mantra is Om Tari Tutari Turi, all the harm of so-and-so, Sarva Raksha Swaha. So this is protection. So the homage says, homage to you, who fingers grace your heart, displaying the mudra of the 3 jewels, graced by the wheels in all direction, your natural radiance overwhelms all. So by reciting, one will be protected from all rebirth in the 3 lower realms and future lives, and from all harm in this life, from Mara and hostile spirits. Then number 10, the venerable Tārā who brings Maras and hindrances under her power. Mara Loka Vashamkari. And her color is red. And so the mantra here is going to be Om Tari Tutari Turi Sarva Papa Maraya Humpe. And so the homage is homage to you, supremely joyous, your splendorous crown spreading garlands of light. To Tārā, smiling and laughing, you bring demons and worlds within your control. Atīśa will say the benefit is by reciting one will bring all non-Buddhists and those with wrong view under your power for this venerable Tārā who brings Maras and hindrances under control. Then we have number 11, noble Tārā who clears away poverty and misfortune. This is Arya Tārā. And then here the mantra seems a little bit short, but I gave what was in the manuscripts. Both manuscripts had Om Tari Tutari Ture Dara Swaha. And so this is a function of increasing. And the praise says, homage to you who can summon the hosts of earthly guardians, knitting your quivering brows with the syllable whom you deliver from every misfortune. And so Atīśa's benefits will say, one, by reciting and visualizing her, one will increase wealth, domestic animals, and precious substances, and be protected against poverty. Number 12 will be the venerable Tārā who bestows all auspiciousness. Sarva Kalyanada Tārā. And so here the mantra is just her standard mantra, it seems. Om Tārā Tutari Turi Soha. And her function is increasing. And the praise says, homage to you, so brightly adorned with a sliver of moon as your crown, your locks always graced by Amitabha, whose bright light streams forever come forth. And so the benefit here is that by reciting and focusing on her, one will receive all auspicious things, happiness and well-being, and achieve all accomplishments. The third one, or 13th one here is going to be Venerable Tārā who blazes like fire. And so her name, which we is not didn't type in here, but it's actually Hutabugdwala. Hutubugdwala. Okay, so Hutabugdwala, that's actually in the Sanskrit shloka. So Hutubugdwala, she who blazes like fire. And then the mantra here is Om Tari Tutari Ture Pota Yasmi Kuruhum, or Kuru Soha. And so she has the function of protecting. So the homage says, homage to you, seated among blazing flames that resemble the fire that ends in an aeon. Right, the Kalpa Anta Hutubugdwala. Immersed in joy, your right leg extends and the left is bent. Thus you crush legions of foes. And so by reciting this, one will be protected against enemies and armies. And then we have the next, the 14th form is Tārā who's wrathfully frowning. This is Brukuti Tārā, and her color is black, and her mantra is Om Tari Tutari Turi Vajra Mahapada Basmim Kuru Soha. And here the function is to subjugate. Homage to you, who on the earth's surface Strike your palms and stamp your feet. The whom that is formed by your frown smashes the 7 netherworlds to nothing but dust. So here Atīśa says the benefit is that by reciting, obstacles and hindrances and enemies will become pacified. Then number 15 is the Venerable Tārā, who is supreme peaceful, Maha Shanti Tārā. And her color is cream color white, and her mantra is Om Tari Tutari Turi Sarva Papam Pashamamanaye Swaha. Her function is to pacify. And the homage says, homage to you, blissful, gracious, and tranquil, whose domain is the peace of nirvana. In perfect union with Swaha and Om, you lay waste to every terrible enemy or terrible evil. Now here, Atīśa will not clarify, but in Gedendrup and Kunganingpo, right, Jonang Tarnata, they will explain that this is a number of commentators, also Sakya Drakpa Gyaltsen, they will say this is a Dharmakaya form. So Atīśa doesn't specify that way. He just gives instructions to visualize each one. And then he says here, the benefit will be that all sins, obscurations, and impure, unwholesome tendencies will become pacified by focusing on this form of Tārā. Then we have the 16th form will be Venerable Tārā, who arises the home of awareness. Vidya Humkara Dīpita Tārā. So her mantra is Om Tare Tutari Turi Sarvadharma Pratiparishodaya Soha. And her function is increasing. So the homage says, homage to you who immerse in rapture, shatter the bodies of all foes. You shine with the knowledge syllable hum. And your mantra's 10 syllables are set forth. So Atīśa will say, thus by reciting one destroys the capabilities of knowledge mantras of others and increases one's own wisdom and intelligence. Then we have the Venerable Tārā, who causes the 3 worlds to tremble. Bhuvana Traya Chalini Tārā. So Bhuvana Traya Chalini. This is also Atīśa's name from the 4th pada of the shloka. And so her color is reddish gold, and it'll say Om Tare Tutari Ture Sarva Stambani Tare Soha. And so homage to Tara, your feet stomping, formed with the seed of the syllable Om, the mountains of Meru, Mandara, and Vidya, and all the 3 worlds, you cause them to quake. So Atīśa, the benefit will be, according to Atīśa, that one will subdue all other knowledge mantra actions and subdue all enemies and robbers. Then we have Venerable Tārā, who pacifies poison and sickness, number 18. And so the 18th form of Tārā is Ashesha Vishana Nashini, red. And so her mantra is Om Tare Tutari Turi Sarvani Shintam Kuru Soha. And so her function is pacifying. This Ashesha Visha Nashini. And so the homage says, homage to you who hold in your hand a deer marked moon like a divine lake. With Tārā uttered twice and then with a pay, you eliminate all poisons. And so by reciting this and visualizing, one will be liberated from sickness, poison, and the harm of nagas. The 19th form will be the Venerable Tārā, who clears away all suffering. Duhuka Danaha Tārā. And so Duhuka Dahana Tārā is white, and her mantra is Om Tare Tutari Turi Mochana Swaha. And her function is to pacify. And it will say here in the homage to you, sovereign of divine hosts, served by gods and Kinaras, your resplendence, an army of joy, pacifies strife and clears away nightmares. Thus, by reciting, one will be free from quarrels and being placed in prison. Venerable Tārā, who clears away all suffering. Then we have number 20 is going to be Tārā, who clears away infectious disease. Visamdvara Nashini, who's orange. And so her mantra is Om Tare Tutare Ture Visarata Hum Ha. So this mantra is a little bit different, right? Hum Ha. And so homage to you, whose 2 eyes shine brightly like the sun and the moon when it's full. To Tārā, with twice uttered hara, you pacify most intractable ills. So according to Atīśa, the benefit will be that by reciting and visualizing, all infectious disease and pestilence will be pacified. Then the 21st and final one will be the Venerable Tārā, who completes all activities. Paripurana Tārā. And her color will be white, as we can see. And the mantra is Om Tare Tutari Ture Sarva Sadhana Soha. And so she has the function of completing. Homage to you who have the power to pacify. You display the three true natures. Tārā, Supreme Lady, you destroy the hordes of grahas, vedalas, and yakshas. So Atīśa will say, by accomplishments, all accomplishments, including pacifying, increasing, magnetizing, and destroying, will be bestowed by focusing on the Paripurana Tārā. So these in brief are the 21 Tāras, their names, colors, and mantras. Now here we can see in the following chart, the next slide, this shows the correlation of the various colors, and then also the number of times that they occur. So these colors will be associated with directions. There'll be a commentary by Chandrakirti, right, who associates these colors with various directions and their activities. And they're related to the four primary activities of pacifying, which is usually going to be the white. And then we have gold, which will be increasing, or earth, like earth. And then we have magnetizing or subjugating, which will be red. And then destructive activities will be with the blue or the black. And then the reddish gold is a combination. So here, when we look, we see the gold. There's three forms of gold Tāras. And then we have cream color or white color Tāra are number 5. Red and gold or orange is 4. The red or magnetizing or subjugating is 7. And then black is 2. So it looks like the majority in the system of Tārā has the function of magnetizing and subjugating, but all these forms. And so these are some of the colors and functions of these Tāras. And then here, the next slide will show is the name change example. So as I mentioned, Atīśa is thinking with these in Tāras in terms of the shloka name. So here, the Venerable Tārā who arises from the womb of awareness is given by Wilson and other scholars as Raga Nisudana Tārā. But here in the manuscript, Atīśa is following from the shloka at the fourth pada, right, which is Vidya Hunkara Dipite. And so he gives her the name Vidya Hunkara Dipita Tārā. And so that's an example of the difference of the manuscript name from other transmissions. Then we also have another example of the mantra. So when I edited the text, I noticed there's several different mantra differences. And so here, one example will be for number 6, Noble Tārā, victorious over the 3 worlds, who is Trilokya Vijaya Tārā. And so here, the mantra is usually given in other works, such as Om Tari Tutari Shatrum Uchataya Soha. But here in Atīśa's work, the mantra is given as Om Tari Tutari Ture, or excuse me, Om Tari Tutari Shatrum Gachata Soha. And so what that shows is that the mantras in Atīśa's work are usually a little bit shorter, and they're in second person imperative forms. So this matches up with how often in esoteric Buddhist works, the mantras are going to be in second person imperative forms in Sanskrit. So this is an example of how the manuscripts differ, or the manuscript shows perhaps an earlier transmission of the mantra, as it were. Now, finally, then, to conclude, we have the concluding points is that this oldest known commentary, this Atīśa is the oldest known commentary and ritual text on the 21 praises, around 1050 CE. It was transmitted from a vision of Tārā himself, right? And then went to the Kadampa followers, and then Sakya masters. And then, as we mentioned, there was this wandering monastic community that was transmitted to their abbot, the 13th abbot of, and that abbot, it's not clear from that point forward whether it went to Sakya or Kagyu masters. But this manuscript predates all extant artwork by 300 years. So this artwork that we see on the right here does show how the 21 Tāras start with green. And then they also show the one-faced, two-armed version. But the instructions and the mantras and so forth are all quite old. And as I mentioned, the practice starts with green Tārā, Janggu Doma, or Shamatara, and one visualizes that and then follows with other visualizations of each quality of those Tāras. Now, Atīśa then follows, as I mentioned, the description of Tāras and the 21 praises. So the 21 praises, Atīśa will name, based on the Sanskrit, particularly the fourth pada, the fourth part of the verse, he'll derive the name from. And then also this very simple, straightforward visualizations with one face, two arms, the Utpala flower and a vase. The main thing that changes is the color and disposition of each Tārā. That will differ from Suryagupta's system. So Suryagupta's system, once again, is translated in Tibetan after the late 11th century, the 5 main works. Those have been studied by Martin Wilson, right? Some of them, but they are after Atīśa's, So this is a very early transmission of the 21 Tāras preserved in these manuscripts. And so the later Tibetan artistic tradition will be working with Tibetan and Tibetan oral tradition as it descends down between all the various masters and schools and master scholars of those traditions. And they also perhaps preserve other transmissions of Atīśa systems. So this is a manuscript tradition that was transmitted mainly from the mid-11th century up until the 15th century or so, at least. And I think it preserves a number of older visualization instruction, as well as the mantras, the names of how an Indian Pandita like Atīśa thought about these 21 verses. So I thank you for the letting me give voice, and I would like to dedicate this whatever merit and so forth that we've accrued here to presenting these 21 Tāras. I would like to dedicate them to the memory of my own mother, biological mother, who passed away several months ago, Carol Jean Schaefer Apple Bedwell. She was excited to hear this presentation, and she had signed up for it in February, and so I told her I would go through with this no matter what. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Professor Apple, for this just rigorous journey through such exciting understanding of history and the evolution of this practice and how it's moved through many different hands and minds and hearts to so many. We have a couple of questions, as I indicated in the chat earlier to everybody. Please, we welcome your questions. We have plenty of time for questions and discussion with Professor Apple. We have some questions already, so I'm going to go to Karen, who's going to have our first question, and then Smitha, I see you. We'll come to you next. So Karen, I'm going to have you come off mute, and I'll bring you on screen.
I think I'm off mute. I hope I'm off mute. And forgive me for going in and out. I have the sunlight behind me, so it may look like I'm in witness protection. I apologize. Can you see me, Professor Apple?
I can hear you. There, I can see you now, yes.
Right. I have 2 questions. The first is regarding the root of Tara's name. Have you ever heard the theory that she might be part of the Tar group, like Ashtarte and Ishtar and several of the goddesses in that region? And what do you think about that?
Yes, I had that in my notes, and also Astarte, Ishtar, but I can't make any further. I didn't want to make a commitment to that because I don't have access to comparative library and so forth. But certainly, I guess the genesis of some of the background of this material is based on a paper I wrote in graduate school in 1996. So when I was at the University of Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin has a very vast library. And so, I went through those, I have those type sources that you mentioned, right? And I remember my advisor was a professor named David Knipe. So he's a scholar of Vedic traditions. And so he was very guarded about me wanting to make this kind of connection between these various I guess kind of goddesses who are related to the stars and so forth, and helping navigators, and that's a very interesting connection. And I had some here this idea. There's a city called Tārā, and there's also these other temples that have not been explored that are related to Tārā, that could be related to navigation, and certainly there was somewhere in my office here, there's a map showing Middle Eastern trade routes between India and the Middle East. And so, yes, I think that's could be explored. But here, I kind of was a little bit conservative about just focusing on the known historical evidence, which is after the 5th century. And but there's another important work here by Malar Ghosh, and she talks about that type of relation in the beginning.
I have that
right?
book. Okay.
Yeah, and so this Malar Ghosh, she talks about the star relation, but and then also you have another good book to work with is Susan Landsman on the Tārā
Yes.
Tantra. And
I
so
just got that one. Yes.
yeah, so she mentions it a little bit in the footnotes, but see, it goes back to this early French edition from around 1895 of these works by Blonay. And so he mentions in the footnotes that type, the early sources where scholars think about that. And so I don't, here at UFC, I don't have access to those type sources to go check them out. And then, but as I say, back in 1996, I can remember initially wanting to explore that type relation, and my advisors were very try to just stick with India. And then because that's fascinating too, because as Ghosh shows, as I kind of mentioned early in the presentation, there seems to be this intercultural competitiveness with Brahmanical Devi and Durga. So there's a text I didn't discuss today about the 108 names of Tārā.
Yes.
And 44 of those are shared with Durga. So there may be some relation there as well. But that kind of development is what one of my other former teachers would call off-camera developments. That is, we don't know for sure. So we work with empirical, detectable, text and inscriptions and epigraphical evidence. So, for instance, there was a recent new paper I got on Tārā, Vajratara. And so in Bengal and south of Bihar, there was a new mandala image of Vajratara. And so they're actually discovering in Eastern India forms of Tārā that weren't necessarily transmitted to Tibet. So here, this one I'm working with today is an early transmission from Atīśa Dīpaṃkaraśrījñāna to Tibet, and then we happen to have this set of manuscripts that match up, and that's what I worked with. But exploring this idea of star and navigation, and also scholars will relate it to the nocturnal, like this is where Shama Tārā, the dark green. A lot of scholars theorize about that as well. The guiding through the ocean and so forth. So I mainly just kind of focused on in the history here, what we know, at least I guess in the extent textual evidence. But yeah,
Sure.
that's an interesting connection potentially.
All right. My second question had to do with the 8 great fears.
Yes.
And are any of the 21 Tārā specifically related to these fears?
Well, I think that would be in the commentaries. Usually you have this Ashtamahabhaya Tārā is a form of in and of herself. And then like I think I showed an image earlier that that image is actually surrounded by the 8 types of Tara. She manifests to protect against those type of fears, and that's usually a set text. So Atīśa himself, an illuminator, right? Illuminator here has a separate sadhana for this protection from the 8 fears, and so this is Ashtabhaya Trana Tara. And so so I don't know, there might be some overlap with the 21 Taras, but the 8 is like a set.
Right.
And then it has precedence with Avalokiteshvara. And then I believe in one of some background literature, scholars want to trace some of that all the way back into some of the Vedic lore, like the Samhitas or something about these 8 fears. And obviously, these fears of like, lions and snakes and flesh-eating demons and elephants, that might belong to another age of, when there was not 9 billion humans on the earth, but maybe, maybe 100 million, so, I mean, but water is the first one. So that could go back to the navigation, water, robbers, lions, snakes, fire, flesh-eating demons, imprisonment. Now, we did see one form of Tara did explicitly mention this, quarrels and imprisonment. So there could be specific these 8 fears, but as a set, they are inherited from Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is, I think, the precedent for protecting against these 8 fears. And then the 8 fears as a set, they might go back into more precedent, general Indic lore. And I haven't researched that, but she seems to inherit these 8 from Avalokiteshvara, and then Atīśa has a separate sadhana for those 8. So there might be overlap with the 21, but the 21 is related to this origins, the 3rd chapter of the Tara, what I call the Tara Tantra, but it has a much longer title, and that's translated by Martin Wilson, and it's also translated that Tara Tantra has now been translated by 84,000. So the 84,000 translating words of the Buddha you can download for free online, and so there's actually, and also they have 4 or 5 new texts on Tara that are from the Kunjur and Tungir. So the 108 names of Tara has been translated, and then also this Tara Tantra that I quoted today with the Buddha and Manjushri talking about why she's called Mother of the Buddhists. That's from I took that from a chapter from one of those translations. So those are resources available through 84,000 related to Tara.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your answers. Thank you. I look forward to your new book.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Apple. Thank you, Karen. I dropped in a link to the 108 Taras from 84,000 that Professor Apple referenced there. Smitha, we had you next to go.
Yep, thank you. Good morning, Professor. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is the system that was developed in Tibet, right, by Atīśa. Is there anything known about Atīśa's practice of the Tara when he was in India, Eastern India?
Yes, well, I mean, we just know from his life story that he consulted her for all these different types of decisions that he was making. That's and we don't have an Indic biography source. So the sources we have are from the Tibetan side. And so the way the Tibetans see it is that he's always consulting her for decisions. Now, there's also an episode where he consults Avalokiteshvara, right? So, but it seems like he's guided by Tara throughout, even in previous lifetimes, supposedly. And then at his birth, and in fact, as the biographies develop in time, the more Tara is involved. So When I did Illuminator, I based it on the two earliest biographies, and yeah, she still appears to guide him. And then also, she appears to him as the Tibetans will say as a mother. So it's difficult. There's a lot of connotations in India with regards to mater and mother, mata, and so it's kind of difficult to see what the Tibetans understand from that representation. That is, it could be the Dromache, the great mother, Yung Chimmo, for instance, or he could be seeing her as a high level bodhisattva. It does say like he sees her he sees her like I'm talking to you right now, is that type of vision, and that she's fully decked out with ornaments and so forth. So he also converses with her. Now, with regards to practice, other than reciting the 21 Tāras, he brings this Tara Mula Kalpa. This Landsman, she's going to have another volume on this, I believe. And the manuscript, 450 folio manuscript, was brought by Atīśa of this Tara Mula Kalpa, and it was not translated for 250 years. So after Atīśa passes away, it still was not translated into Tibetan, the Sanskrit manuscript. So Atīśa was fully knowledgeable of this Tara Mula Kalpa, and perhaps also these other tantric texts, and also esoteric Buddhist texts that Dromtonpa, his lead Tibetan disciple, did not permit him to transmit. So Tibetans actually have to wait till Kunga Ningpo Jonang Jetsun Taranata, right? So Taranata, Kunga Ningpo, Jonangpa scholar, he collects all this lore about Tara from Buddha Guptanata, one of his masters. Buddha Guptanata tells him, in like this lore today that I mentioned, legendary account about Yeshidawa, Janatandra, and her vow, that all comes from Taranata. So, and as I say, Jonang Taranata, he in his commentary is very explicit about the highest yoga tantric aspects of Tara, which Atīśa was not permitted to teach. So the kind of reporting or information we have about Atīśa is, I mean, he does provide these high practices of hers, the 3 jewels and the sadhana, high level meditation, and also the sadhana on the different forms of sadhana, like the 21 Tāras or the 8 protection Tāras. But there's also things that were not translated and that he was not allowed to transmit.
A follow-up question is, was there any connection, like you mentioned about the connection with the Hindu, deities, or any Vedic connections, local connections with the deities in Bengal?
Well, that's hard to say because as a scholar, I'm kind of mentioning this kind of underlying Indic cultural background and so forth. But Atīśa himself, in the biographies, he'll differentiate himself from Buddhists and non-Buddhists. And also, he mentions in these 21 Tāras, right, the benefit is protection from some kind of non-Buddhists and so forth. And during Atīśa's life, when he's traveling from Vikramasila to Tibet, he actually debates with non-Buddhists. So, and then he also has to negotiate with some non-Buddhist, yogis and so forth. So, what I don't know. I think he would differentiate. The Buddhist, and this is why I wanted to relate Tara more to Prajna Paramita than to Durga. So certainly there's intra-cultural competitive elements. But what's interesting is, I didn't include it, but there's this book here on the perfection of wisdom by R.C. Jameson. This is based on 11th and 12th century manuscripts of perfection of wisdom. And what's very interesting about this book is that in the pictures of the manuscript are all these Tara temples that were throughout India. So here we see a Tara temple in Bihar, ancient Bihar. And so these Tārā temples were, according to this manuscript location in the 11th century, they're all the way from Bihar to Gujarat and south in India as well. So it looks like Tārā by the 11th century is venerated throughout India as a Buddhist deity. And so I would, Atīśa, for me, I see it as a continuity of Prajnaparamita. And that's, this is the images of her and the Tārā temple are from Prajnaparamita manuscripts. So that's how I think he would see her.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Smita. Next question we have is from Min. Min, we'll have you come off mute. Perfect.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Professor, for really great discussions. I really enjoy it. I think that actually it's kind of interesting to see like how these people, I was like Atīśa was so inspired by Tārā. Actually, it kind of reminds me of a recent example of have you heard of Ramanujan? Have you heard of Ramanujan, the great Indian mathematicians? So he came up with all these wonderful mathematical formulas about infinities. And when he went to Oxford to actually study with the English mathematician, they asked him like, where did you get this idea from? And he said that has the visions of the goddesses, and they showed me the formulas, and I just write them down. And then I think, but originally he was not allowed by his religion to go outside of India, because at that time all the Brahmin cannot travel outside of India. And so his family was very against it. And then the goddess appears again in his mother's dream and told him that you have to let him go to England to study mathematics. That's how he will be known. So I think that it's really interesting to see all of this great scholar was inspired by these by the vision of the goddesses.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. The one point I left out of the early part of the presentation is that this feminine force, the goddesses, as you mentioned, have always been in India this inspiration and form of knowledge. So, for instance, even in the Vedic lore, you have Viraj and then Vach, the goddess of speech, and then also Sarasvati. These are all feminine forces, right? And so Prajna is actually very early on a feminine force. And this is because of their creative and engendering power for realizations and so forth. And so that even in the Upanishads, like the Brihadanyaka Upanishad, will mention Prajna as a feminine force. So yes, this idea of feminine force and goddess inspiring vision, even for in modern times like mathematics. So 1,000 years ago, for Buddhist master like Atīśa, he's being inspired by Tārā.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I remember this correctly, but I read somewhere that Tārā is also associated with forest too. There's an aspect of Tārā that is very strongly associated with forestry, like forests and flowers and things like that.
That's right. There's also Hindu forms of Tārā. So Tārā as Vidya, as goddess, Devi, is also in Hindu form. And then also in more modern times, definitely Shama Tārā, Kandiravani Tārā, Green Forest Tārā. Yes, she definitely feminine force with the earth. And Shama, this green, yes, definitely related to environmental things in present day world. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe she's the goddess for our time. We need to definitely heal the environment to some degree. Also, have you explored these? I think in the Avatamsaka Sutra, this Buddha flower ornament sutra, there's a group of 9 goddesses appear at the very end, just before the celestial bodhisattva, like only 9 goddesses. So have you explored them at all?
No, that's something interesting to look into. I've not explored that Avatamsaka link.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Min. Thank you, Professor Apple. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. We have plenty of time, so please send in your questions. And in the meantime, I'll ask a couple. The first is, what do we know about Atīśa's, the evolution of his direct lineage, of how he received Tārā from the teachers that he had? You know, he had the lay teacher Jatari. You speak about these in Illuminator. What do we know about his own personal lineage of instruction? And then the second would be in terms of how the practice that he essentially then stewarded and brought to Tibet, was it shaped by that kind of lineage, or was it shaped more by his direct visions of Tārā? I also know, I think in Illuminator you mentioned as well, he received from Serlingpa certain ritual practices from Tārā. So just curious about the evolution of his own personal practice, and then that practice that was essentially stewarded and given to others.
Well, thank you. I think it's all direct vision. It's almost like a direct visionary. He had like a high level direct link, visionary link to Tārā. And like this project here, this 21 Tāras, you know, that vision of how to practice these comes directly from Tārā. And then there'll be, we have these rare first person accounts where he'll have instruction from Tārā. So like when he's circumambulating in Bodh Gaya, Vajrasana, you know, the form of Tārā will tell him, right? Or he'll receive some indication when he goes from Vikramasila to Vajrasana, Bodh Gaya, about making a decision about whether to go to Tibet or not. There'll be a lady yogi who appears, and then he understands her to be an emanation of Tārā. So it seems, at least textually and in the accounts of his life, that it's a direct line from Tārā and he is directly consulting her and it's like me talking to you right now. It reminds me of the kind of link that J. Rinpoche Tsongkhapa has with Manjushri. That Atīśa has this ability to visually see Tārā, and I'm suspecting it's like some kind of interdimensional visual capacity where he's picking up on these Sambhoga Kaya forms, these enjoyment bodies, and he's able to directly communicate with her about and at least in the biographies, he's making these important decisions, like to leave Vikramasila for Tibet, or to other types of decisions like that. But I don't remember the lineage list, as you say, right? Like even with Serlingpa, right? Like he receives Abhisamayalankara, and then also bodhicitta, Lojong practices from Serlingpa, and those are definitely given in the lineage list. But I'm sure there's some forms of Tārā. But like when I think of Serlingpa, the main thing Atīśa brings back is this rare form of Ganapati, Ganesh. Like there's a Buddhist form of Ganesh, and a Dharmakirti, or Sri Serlingpa Dharmakirti Sri is the one that has that. So with regards to Tārā, though, I haven't looked into that specific question. It just seems to me that, like with this text that I worked with here, the vision and the inspiration comes directly from Tārā, and that he has some type of authority of having a direct link with Tārā, and then those practices are transmitted that way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Professor Apple. We do have a bit of time left. If anybody has any additional questions or would like to kind of bring up something for discussion.
Min's hand is up. I'll wait.
Oh, please go ahead. Yeah, I can wait.
Professor Apple, so you keep referring to Illuminator. I think I misunderstood. Is this a book that you wrote?
Yeah.
It's called Atīśa, Illumination of the Awakened Mind. Okay, I was trying to find it on Amazon. So thank you so much. Appreciate. Oh, okay. I thought I bought that book. Okay. I'll definitely pick that up. Thank you.
And again, just I mentioned one of the previous events presented by Tse Ling with Professor Apple is on YouTube, focusing specifically on this work as well. So there's a resource out there available to kind of navigate in. All right, Min, we'll go to you.
Yes, thank you. I just noticed that we had exactly 21 people in attendance, so it's kind of like a very auspicious numbers. Well, so I think one of my question is that I think you mentioned that Atīśa was not allowed to transmit certain teachings into Tibet at a time by his translator or his student, and my question is that why? Yeah, why was they not allowing a very highly realized master to give his full teachings?
Yes. Well, Atīśa was invited to Tibet for ethical discipline. So at the time in West Tibet, it'll be an illuminator. The Tibetans didn't really understand the relations between Vinaya, discipline, and the esoteric Buddhist practices, which have a lot of, can have a lot of eroticism in them and so forth. So Atīśa was brought for that kind of monastic, esoteric understanding of the integration of these yogic practices. And so the disciple, Druntanpa, he was very worried that these high-level teachings would be misunderstood by Tibetans and be used in a wrong way. As there was a lot of problems in West Tibet before Atīśa arrived. There was a lot of people in West Tibet that were involved with taking some of these esoteric teachings and, with either violence or some type of sexual exploitation or what have you. And so these were being, in the view of the king in West Tibet, Zhengzhebe, these were viewed as being kind of very negative. And so Atīśa was actually brought to West Tibet, invited as a disciplinarian. He was not invited for his Madhyamaka view. He wasn't even invited for his understanding of Tantra. Atīśa was famous at Vikamalashila as a disciplinarian. And so he was like he was very well famous for having Maitripa, this other yogi master, kicked out of Vikamalashila monastery for violating Vinaya protocol, monastic protocol. So when the Tibetans come, they want to visit Vikamalashila to invite a master. They want someone who's integrated all the teachings of the Vinaya Sutra and Abhidharma as well, and then also the Mahayana and advanced esoteric Buddhist teachings. And so he is brought to West Tibet to show how this type of, and that kind of discussion appears here in the Illuminator. And so after Atīśa goes to West Tibet, he anticipated going back to Vikamalashila, but because there was war and so obstacles in Nepal, he had to go to Central Tibet. And so Atīśa's lead disciple, Druntanpa, was a very famous layperson who is thought to be an incarnation of Avalokiteshvara, and also from a very prominent family. And so Druntanpa was very guarded about all kinds of different teachings, not just Tārā. Like, Atīśa was really upset that not only Atīśa is this fully trained Pandita master. So he was also trained in the Doha couplet lineages of Mahamudra. And Atīśa told, Druntanpa tells him, you have to keep your mouth shut. And then Atīśa's like, well, why did I come here? If I cannot teach these songs of sudden realization, this is a big problem. Well, in Tibet, right, there's a long-standing tradition since the Samye debate that there's a gradual realization. And so Atīśa, not only this kind of esoteric practices related to Tārā, but there's also, instantaneous realization practices related to Mahamudra that Atīśa was not allowed to teach. So these advanced, even this, Tārā Mula Kalpa here, which is a kind of a Kriya level Tantra, I believe. It's actually Atīśa will classify it as a Kalpa Tantra, which no other scholar does, because he has most, after Rinzin Zangpo, Tibetans have a fourfold classification of esoteric literature, but Atīśa himself has a sevenfold classification, and Kalpa Tantra is one of those. And no one knows exactly what Atīśa meant by that, other than what I mentioned, that is for healing and protection rituals. But even that type text was not translated for 250 years. So this, Atīśa brought the 450 folio Sanskrit manuscript to Rating, and then this was not translated because it was thought to be too esoteric. So not only John Tonpa, but others as well were guarded about Atīśa's teachings.
Thank you so much for your explanation. I could only wonder what would happen if Atīśa was allowed his full transmission in Tibet. That would have been like a very interesting thing to have seen. All of his teaching, all of his knowledge and transmissions.
Well, yeah, I have this forthcoming book I hope is published one day that is on his stages of the path, and then this stage is this Jonshoge Bodhipatta Krama has been hidden for 800 years, and we'll see if it gets to be published or not. But that text too, there's and then a couple of other teachings, manuscripts I'm working on, have not, for whatever reason, due to the contingencies of history, have not been, transmitted. So yeah, I hope to get out as much as I can any teachings like this.
Thank you. I guess, but maybe one last question. Is there anything about the tradition saying that where would Atīśa would go after his earthly expiration? Did he say he would go to some heaven, a pure land?
Yes, Atīśa was reborn in Tusita heaven as the Bodhisattva stainless space. Stainless space, Vimala. Let me see here. Well, yes, but Atīśa, after he told his disciples, now this is very interesting. At the end of his life, he asked his disciples to draw. He was seeing images of Maitreya and Manjushri debating in Tusita heaven, and so he asked a painting to be commissioned for that, and that actually survives in Italy. They found the remnants of that in Italy. You have to look very hard to find that painting, but I have it. It's not here in my office, but Atīśa was having visions of Manjushri and Maitreya, and then he was informing his disciples that he would be reborn as stainless space, and so he goes to the pleasant, what's called there's a special part of Tusita heaven, which is a desire realm heaven where the future Buddha Maitreya resides. And so there's a certain area there called the pleasant doctrine bearing joyous place. So I've written a book chapter on that for Gelugpa forms of Buddhism. But here, 300 years earlier, Atīśa is reborn there, and he is reborn as this stainless space, which is going to Vimala Akasha or Vimala, and so he takes rebirth there as a high-level bodhisattva in Tusita heaven.
Thank you. Maybe one day someone in this group can channel Atīśa and then ask him these other questions.
Thank you, Min. Smita, I saw you had your hand raised.
Yeah. Quick question, not directly about Atīśa, but what is the timeline of Suryagupta, the one who developed the system of Tārās in Kashmir?
I think 11th century. I'm pretty sure it's 11th century. I'd have this, you know, this is really covered by this book here is In Praise of Tārā by Martin Wilson. And so Suryagupta is, let's see, usually 11th century, I think. Let me see. Well, actually 7th century. I'm wrong. He's 7th century here. At least, well, there's actually, sometimes scholars here say Suryagupta or Ravigupta. So, he can be 7th century. According to Martin Wilson, it's 7th century. But the works weren't translated into Tibetan until the late 11th century. So, and also, you know, Suryagupta's forms, right? Like all of Atīśa's 21 Tāras are one face, 2 arms. But you can see here, Suryagupta, he's got, multiple armed deities. So this Kashmir form is very complex, multi-face, multi-arm visualizations. But that's what's quite often evoked. The system, there is a whole, actually, Martin Wilson, he did a lot of that work with related to her. But, in terms of a whole set of commentaries that Suryagupta has, I don't think that they've been fully translated in English yet. Although 84,000 might have some of them, I would have to check.
Okay. So that iconography you just showed looked, it kind of looks similar to Chundi Dharini or Chundi Mantra.
Yes, these block prints, the artwork, you can go on to HimalayanArt.com and they will, the presenters there, like today's presentation, I used the images of Atīśa system from HimalayaArt.com. And so HimalayaArt.com will show Suryagupta's system and all the various forms and how she was rendered in Tibet and understood among Tibetan masters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Smita. And we have a, if you don't mind, we have 2 more quick questions. So we have one from John. So John, we'll have you come off mic, and I think you're ready to go, and we'll have you ask your question. Oh, John, you're on mute. You're on mute.
How about now?
Perfect. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Early on in the presentation, the name Chandrakirti was mentioned. And I couldn't follow at that point whether it's referring to the very famous Chandrakirti or someone with a similar name.
Let me see. Kirti, right? Well, I mentioned Vaga Ishvara Kirti, who is the one who transmits the cheating death white Tārā. That Atīśa brings that practice with him. And so that seems to have been the early Kirti that I mentioned. It's Vaga Ishvara Kirti.
Not Chandrakirti.
Well, in the colophon, there's mentioned this Dadrak Sarma. So in the list of individuals in the colophon to the manuscript, that after it's initially transmitted by Tārā to Atīśa and then his disciples. So then if you go, let's see, so you have Venerable Tārā, Princely Lord, Drumturn, Hutawa, Sharwapa, Drumturn, Wangchuk Drak, Saturn Shakya Shunyu, then Dadrak Sarma. That Dadrak Sarma, that literally translates as new Chandrakirti. And so some scholars think that doesn't refer to an individual person. It refers to a group of scholars that were at Sangpu Monastery, because the next person Rongtern Shakya Gyaltsen, who is also known as Rongtern Shecha Kunrik. He lives from 1367 to 1449. So the date range is too long for it to be just any one individual person. However, it's known that Rongtern Shakya Gyaltsen, as a teenager, when he was getting his education, because he was a great Sakyapa master, before he, when in his training, he went to Sangpu. And at that time, when he went to Sangpu, there was this new way of understanding Chandrakirti. So Dadraksarma may be referring to this kind of new school of Chandrakirti. And that's what I found that in a Japanese article on Dadraksarma related to this Dadraksarma. So some scholars in Japan have theorized it's not an individual person, it's referring to a group of scholars who are studying at Sangpu Monastery. Because otherwise, I could not find in my research anyone with this name, Dadraksarma, New Chandrakirti. So it's referring to a new way of understanding or studying Chandrakirti, this kind of prasangika method that was developed in Tibet.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. One last question here, Professor Apple. It came in via chat. You mentioned that the green form of Tārā was kind of the principal form of Tārā. Yet when we went through the 21, we began with the first one being red Tārā. Any comments on that explanation?
Well, I cited Buddha Guya. So the green Shama form, Jangu, that's the basis. She embodies all the activities. So you could say it's like the green form is like the light, and then all the other ones are like the refraction from the rainbow of her presence, right? Mm. That is, those individual Tāras represent like specific energies related to the the Chatur karma, right? The increasing, magnetizing, subjugating. There's these traditional 4 karmic activities. They're mentioned both in the Tārā Tantra, but they're also presupposed among esoteric Buddhist masters. So Atīśa, the base form, the text, this Atīśa system of 21 Tāras, opens up with visualizing as green. So green seems to be the base form. It seems it embodies, as Buddha Guya says, all the colors of white, yellow, and blue, and so it encompasses all activities. And then that green form is what then develops and has the specific activities for the pacifying, increasing, subjugating, magnetizing. So red, as we saw in the overview, this red color seems to be has 7 different types among the 21. So it seems that the transition from opening visualization of Jangu Shama green into red kind of shows the emphasis that Atīśa is putting on magnetizing and this kind of magnetizing power in the 21 Tāras.
Thank you so much, Professor Apple. That is our final question. We're so grateful. We'll just mention Professor Apple's books one more time for those. I'll bring them back on screen. Illuminator of the Awakened Mind and Jewels of the Middle Way. Please take a look for them. We have this wonderful presentation on Illuminator that Professor Apple did that's on Seichen Ling's YouTube channel. In this course of this presentation, he mentioned the stages of the Path of Awakening. This Lamrim text that is forthcoming. Excerpts of that, some of which are in Illuminator, are already available there, but we're looking forward to the full translation of that and that work coming out. So, thank you so much for your time, Professor Apple. Thank you all for being here, and obviously thank you for Seichen Ling for putting this on, and all the teams behind it to bring this together. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful day and stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Apple.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.